What is up, guys? Fi here with our top 5 top laners for patch 5.2. God, I had to say that so clearly because every time I said top 5 top, I just completely lost it. Anyway, so just a quick note with the top laners. You can pretty much play anything in top lane because it's a 1v1 lane. So if you're good enough with that champion, then you can win. These are just the 5 best at actually carrying solo queue in general. So first up on this list is going to be Kassadin, and Kassadin took the number 5 spot on our mid tier list as well. So I'm not actually going to go too in depth on it because if you want a really in-depth reasoning, you can watch that video. I'll obviously cover why he is good right now in top lane, and a lot of that is just because everything that applies to the mid applies to the top 2, and actually applies a little bit better. Top is a 1v1 farm lane, right? You just farm until you basically come into the game mid game, and that is exactly what Kassadin wants. Kassadin is stronger mid to late game than he is early, and he needs that Rod of Ages, which is going to be about the time of team fights. This is actually good for your team as well because Kassadin isn't great in ganks, he's not great receiving ganks because he can't really do too much, so you can have a high pressure mid laner doing that job and snowballing the mid lane early, and then you come in mid game and just clean everyone up. Kassadin also does very well against the other meta top laners right now. He can hold his own, and a big part of that is his W. His Q obviously lets you poke, but then when the enemy comes in to actually trade with you, your W is going to do a huge amount of burst. So you do that, you then jump away or run away, and you've won that trade. The final thing to say is that when you do get your Rod of Ages on Kassadin, that is when you want to start roaming, you want to start TPing or just roaming down to the mid lane, because once you have that, you want to start snowballing. That is your spike, that is when you have your damage, and that's the time to impact the rest of the map. Taking a number 4 spot is going to be Irelia, and honestly if you are a really good Irelia, if you're just really good at the champion, then you can throw this tier list out of the window because she is going to be number 1. She can beat anyone if she is good enough. It's one of the big things about Irelia is that she has a very high skill cap. Now this is one of the cons I guess for her, is that because every matchup is a skill matchup basically, if you aren't very good with her or if you mess up yourself, then you're going to lose that matchup. The other good thing about Irelia that isn't on the right hand side of your screen is that she can really build or itemize against the enemy team properly. After that Triforce, she can get magic resist, she can get armor, she can get health, she can get more damage, and all of those things work. Irelia is probably the most versatile build champion wise in the game. You can't mention Irelia and not mention her stun either. It's one of the most broken things in the game. It's 2 seconds I believe max, and that is just purely ridiculous. What it means in team fights and late game is that if you let the enemy AD hit you a couple of times and you're lower health, you then stun them, activate your W, ult, Q, and the enemy AD is probably going to be dead by the time he's unstunned. Unstunned? I don't even think that's a word, but I'm going to leave that in there because I don't really care. The last thing that she's weak against is high mobility, so people like Sivir who can just run away from her, the only thing she's got is her E, her stun, and if she can't stun you and can't stick to you, then she's really useless. So at number 3, we're going to be looking at Riven, and Riven is very similar to Irelia in that it depends how good you are with that champion, because she has a very high skill cap and she's very mechanically intensive, but if you pick her up and you get good with her, then you can easily snowball a game completely by yourself. So one of the best things about Riven is that she doesn't really need to win her lane to be effective. I mean, obviously it's better if you do, but if you don't, you're still going to be strong. Part of that is her scaling on her kit is just so ridiculous, so you don't need many items to be effective. The other good thing about this, and the kind of the flip side I guess, is that if you do actually get ahead on Riven, because she doesn't need many items, when she actually does have those items, she is incredibly strong. I think we've all had that game where the enemy Riven just gets fed and then comes down from top lane and completely ruins the entire team fight and kills everyone, and that's not really that uncommon anymore. Riven is weak against crowd control though, that's the biggest thing, and I guess kind of tanks as well that she can't kill quickly. She's got very similar playstyle to someone like Draven in that if she doesn't kill you before you kill her, then she's pretty much useless. Crowd control is probably the best way of making sure that she doesn't do anything in a team fight, because if you crowd control her, she can't shield, she can't Q, she can't kill you, and you're going to end up taking her out very quickly. So taking a number 2 spot is going to be Lissandra, and I really considered putting her first. In my list when I did the prep for this video, I had her first, then I had her second, then I moved her back to first, and finally she settled down here at second. Now Lissandra is really hard to gank and really hard to pressure in lane, and that makes her such a lane bully with the damage that she has as well. I don't think anyone on this list can stand up to her in lane. She has a really good team fight with her ultimate and her Zhonya's when she gets that. She has great ganks and roam potential, even just walking down or with her TP, and she's really hard to kill if she's focused first. One of the most dangerous things about playing against Lissandra is that if she flanks on the team fight and she comes in from the side and gets your carry, then that carry is pretty much going to be one shot or dead or just too low to do anything in the fight. Now a lot of characters can do that, right? They can take the enemy carry out of the fight, but when she does that, she's not going to take any damage in return because either she ults herself or she Zhonya's, and so basically you've lost your carry and you still have this massive threat in the middle of your team. The best way to beat Lissandra is to shut her down early, and that's actually really difficult to do because she has her claw to escape. But if you do shut her down early, then she's really weak the rest of the game. She doesn't actually have a ton of innate damage, she needs items to do damage, so if you do shut her down, then she basically just becomes this stun bot with her ultimate and that's it. The other thing is, I said that obviously no one can really go against her in lane, and that's true, but if you're against a pure tank and they just stack MR, then there's not really anything you're going to be able to do. You'll be pushed in, you'll just have to farm and try and look for roams. So hopping his way into the number 1 spot, I got the puns, I should have done this for the other ones, whatever. Anyway, number 1 spot is going to be Gnar, and Gnar is just an absolute monster right now. He is really strong in lane, he's got a great team fight, he has loads of crowd control, and he can just build pure tank and still do a ton of damage. The way I like to think of Gnar is that he's kind of like the top lane version of Orianna. He has this huge game-changing ultimate that if you land in a team fight can really sway the outcome. His lane phase is really strong because in mini Gnar he can just push slowly with his ranged auto attacks and he can farm safely, and when he turns into mega you get a lot of kill pressure and no one can really fight you. The reason he's number 1 on this list is because there isn't really any way to beat a good Gnar. If you're really good at Gnar, then I think you're always going to win your lane and you're always going to have a high impact in the game. The only downside to Gnar is your own team, because your own team don't often wait for Mega Gnar, which means you are useless in a team fight if you don't have that, and if they don't wait for it, then you're just going to lose. So this is the biggest piece of advice I can give any Gnar player, is before you even start a team fight, but when it looks like your team are going to engage, you say, wait for my Mega Gnar. When I hit Mega Gnar, I'll engage. You don't engage before it, because if you do, we're going to lose. So there are 3 really other carries, I guess, that could also be on this list, and that's going to be Jax, Nidalee, and Rumble. Now Nidalee, again, for the same reasons that I haven't put her on my mid tier list, is she's difficult to play and you have to poke, and your teams just in solo queue don't really let you poke, so she's not the best solo queue pick unless you're really good with her. Moving on to Jax, he's very strong and he's very strong late game, but in lane he can be beat by pretty much everyone on this list, so I don't think going into lane expecting to lose is really the mentality you want to have to win solo queue. Finally, Rumble. I really wanted to put Rumble on this list because I think he's a really high impact, really good top laner right now, but I just don't see him that much in solo queue, and when I do, people miss their role and it's just not effective. I guess what I'm trying to say is Rumble isn't a very consistent pick unless you are good with him, but he is actually really strong right now, and if you can TP down properly and use your roams when you have your ultimate, then you can easily carry a game because your ultimate really hurts in the mid game. Okay, so that wraps up my top 5 top laners for patch 5.2, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As I said before, there are tons of top laners that can work if you're just really good with them, but these are the 5 that are best to carry solo queue with. That's all for this video, so I'll catch you next time.